Go ahead.
Quick question. Do the spiders, when they crawl the site, do they only do the things that are linked to? So let's say you have a page out there that isn't linked within your website, but just sits out there. Would the spider find it, or does it actually follow the tree of the...
It follows your site's tree, right? Now, if that page is an orphan page and it happens to be linked externally, it might find it. However, there's risks associated with that because they might believe that you're trying to do something called doorway pages or hallway pages or whatever you want to call it. And that's one of the sort of questionable methodologies to create pages which are doorway pages and they exist exclusively for the search engines and they don't exist for users. And the reason a search engine might guess that that page was made for search engines and not for users is because if a user can't get to it from your home page, what's it doing there? Right? If they can't navigate there through your navigational scheme, why is it there? Where, if it was there for humans, then you'd probably have some way of navigating to it. So that's sort of why doorway pages can be dangerous, particularly orphan doorway pages with respect to SEO.
Would it be safer just to put it in the robots.txt? Indicate that those pages...
Yeah, you could do that, or you could just find a way to link to it in a more innocuous way. That if you would prefer that humans not get to it, I don't know why it would exist if you don't want humans to see it, but if you prefer that they don't, then put it in your robots.txt or make it non-orphaned so that at least it sort of fits within the hierarchy. Excuse me.
Where sometimes we do promotions.
Right.
We only want certain people like to do the promotion and go to that page.
Right.
So that page is not really referenced anywhere in our website.
Sure.
You have to type in that URL to get there.
Yeah, and in that case, I would put it in the robots.txt. A lot of times, there are good reasons and rationales to build these promotional landing pages, particularly for paid search, right? Because you may decide that for a particular paid search keyword, that the messaging that will work best for a person who comes in off of that keyword doesn't exist anywhere on your site. And it's got a special price or it's got a special deal, and you don't want everybody to find it, so you do want that orphan page. But in that case, you'd probably be, just to be on the safe side, put it in the robots.txt file so that the robots don't find it. Because if a lot of people link to it externally, let's say it's a sweepstakes, right? A lot of people link to sweepstakes. If a lot of people link to it externally, then it could end up showing up pretty high for something, and then you sort of now everybody's getting that deal because everybody's seeing that page.
Okay, I'm the one that I'm marketing, not the other aspect.
Right.
We have a service, we have a provider.
Right.
That deals with our homepage.
An ISP or something,
Yeah.
right?
So we have a whole lot of those pages because we deal with a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say, what would be the terminology that's safe to that person? If I say, these pages, give them a list and say put them in our robots.txt, will they know what I'm talking about?
If they don't, then you should probably find a new provider. You could say, if you wanted to get really geeky, you could say, please disallow these in my robots.txt. But even if you just say, could you put these in my robots.txt, I don't want.
Those pages, the phantom pages that we have.
Yeah, just to be on the safe side. Because essentially what the search engines do with respect to penalizing sites for, let's say, black hat activity, they're sort of like, strikes, right? If you do one thing wrong, unless that thing was really nasty, that's usually not enough to get you banned. If you did several things wrong, then you're going to start racking up strikes, and then you could potentially get penalized. So some penalizations are automated, that just somewhere within the system it finds certain things that it thinks are sort of questionable, and they'll just penalize it without a human intervention. If you go far enough, you can actually get banned. Getting banned is usually a human intervention, right? There's actually a huge team at each of the search engines that decide when a site should be banned. So if you do a lot of things wrong, or you hire the wrong kind of firm and they do a lot of these things, that'll raise the red flags, several spam filter flags, and then it may get put in front of a person, at which point that person might say, yeah, this looks pretty slimy. Let's go ahead and ban this person. At which point, and if this happens to you, if you got banned by a search engine, you can beg forgiveness, right? You can fix everything that the vendor did that was bad, and then say, apologies, I didn't know this was bad. I hired a bad vendor. I've now learned what I did wrong, and I fixed those. Make sure you did in fact fix them when you ask for forgiveness. But there's a couple of email addresses you could write to, where it puts into a queue, and there's sort of the team that sits right next to the team that does the banning, which is the forgiveness team, and then they probably like shout over the cubicles to each other, like, was this one really nasty? Or there's probably little notes in the file about how nasty a particular SEO trickster was.
How do spiders feel about different URLs pointing to the same site?
Different URLs pointing to the same content, they usually prefer that you do that using what's called a 301 redirect. I think I've got a slide on that. But there are sort of different ways of resolving URLs to the same place. One is basically just point them to the same IP and have all the URLs stay the same. The user experience is the same, but the URLs are different. That's not the preferred way for the search engines. What they prefer is what's called a 301 redirect, which is a permanently moved command. And what that basically tells the search engines and the browsers is that this page no longer exists. It could be an entire site, or it could be an individual page. This page no longer exists. It's now here. And this permanently moved command can be put into your server much the same way that a robots.txt is. It's a little more complicated than a robots.txt, but it can be done so that you can allow multiple domain names to resolve to the same. So what you really have to do is you have to pick your primary, which is the one that I really, which is the one that I've transitioned to, which is the one that is my new brand or whatever, and then everything else should probably have a 301 permanently moved redirect.